Welcome to the Philadelphia Sports Table Podcast Show, the longest running weekly Philly sports podcast show in the world. Great to be in your ears if you're listening to us on an audio podcast platform. If you're watching on YouTube, hi. It is
Hello.
good to see you. And there is Len. Yes, I'm Jeff Warren here with my buddy Len Hunsicker. My friend, good to see you. It's great. We basically just had a half-hour therapy session prior to us hitting the record button.
It's good to just man, it's all work
It's
stuff
life.
and all that stuff,
life stuff. Yeah.
It's good to get some of that off your chest every now and again.
Absolutely. A lot of good stuff going on in the world of Philly sports. Seriously, I think that it never ceases to amaze me with the teams that we follow and the up and down nature of all the teams in this city. It's amazing. Like a couple weeks ago, it feels like everything's terrible. Well, nothing's working out right. And then just 2 weeks later, it's like, oh, okay. Yeah. Good things are happening. It's just amazing the way sports works, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's crazy how stuff can flip. I mean, I guess the which we're going to talk about later on, but the ultimate example of that is, you go from the Sixers, who after they got, blasted by the Knicks out of the playoffs, is just like, look at this roster. They're dead in the water, blah, blah, blah. And now we're going to talk about it tonight. I mean,
and look,
like, Jesus God, look at this roster. Like,
yes.
So yeah, as they say, life comes at you quick.
Absolutely, it does. Look, folks, what we're going to get into on this podcast episode, we're first going to, of course, get into some Phillies talk. Moves were made at the trade deadline. We're going to get into those moves. And also, the question is, will we actually see a different Phillies team for the remainder of the season based on these particular acquisitions? And then from there, like Len said, going to get into some Sixers talk here. Excitement is just off the charts in terms of where this team is at, and the fan base is absolutely stoked, and for good reason. Going to dive into some Sixers talk for sure. And then haven't talked about them in quite some time, because why would we? The Philadelphia Union have been at the basement of the Eastern Conference of Major League Soccer. But guess what, folks? They've won 3 games in a row. We're going to give our thoughts on the Union. Are they actually making a comeback here after the World Cup break? And then we're going to get into some Eagles talk. Len and I are going to dive into what we're focusing on this week, particular storyline. And then we have our good friend Ed Kracz from Eagles Today over at SI. He's going to join us to break down some of the ongoing storylines within Eagles training camp so far. NFL season, Eagles season is right around the corner. So, Len, why don't we start off with the Phillies acquisitions at the trade deadline? My gosh, Luis Arraez, second baseman, and with that acquisition, you've got guys who are moving around in terms of their positions. Bryce Harper out in right field, Alec Bohm playing first base, and interesting. We're going to get to all that in just a bit, but also reliever Brooks Raley and also reliever Caleb Killian as well. And in terms of like assessing these acquisitions here, Len, kind of wanted to go through the 3 of them really quick with you, and maybe we'll give a grade. So how about Luis Arraez? I'm actually giving this an A- in terms of the grade here, because he's an amazing hitter. This team absolutely needed that offensive help that Bryce Harper so eloquently put just a short time ago. Brandon Marsh has certainly fallen on hard times after a breakout first half of the season, basically leaving Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber as the team's only consistent and productive hitters. Arraez, I think, is very welcomed, and I'm going to give that move an A-. What would you give it?
Yeah, I mean, particularly when you look at how he started off with the Phils in the 2 games he's played so far.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a couple hits in the first game and the home run tonight. So I mean, yeah, he's been as advertised. It's just nice to have a guy that you're just like, oh man, he can compete for a batting title, because he's won a few batting titles and he's consistently one of the better hitters in baseball. So I mean, yeah, it's a much needed shot in the arm. I was a little surprised that maybe he's not hitting higher in the order, so that if Harper or Schwarber does hit a home run, instead of a solo home run, it's a 2-run home run, because Arraez is on base, because he gets on base.
Yep.
But they've utilized him. They're using him in the 4 hole, the 5 hole right now. So yeah, I mean, as long as he just does what he's done, which is just hit and hit and hit and hit.
Yep.
Defensively, he's improved greatly over the past couple years. I know at one point he was a pretty, not very well regarded defensive second baseman. He went over to, I believe, it was in San Francisco, where he hooked up with Ron Washington, longtime, MLB coach, who's greatly improved his defense, both at second and at first. So
Yeah.
yeah, he's become a more well-rounded player than a guy that is just I think he had a reputation as like, oh, he just hits singles. He does
Yeah.
it all the time, but he just hits singles. Whereas, maybe there is a little bit more to him than that. So, yeah, it's hard to complain about this at all. I'll give it an A.
All right, very good. And look, within that acquisition of Luis Arise, they ended up getting, and we're going to talk about him in a second, Caleb Killian from San Francisco for Ramon Marquez. He's basically MLB Pipeline's number 4 prospect, and Marty Gayer. Is that how you say his last name?
I think Geyer, but I'm not
Geyer.
100% sure.
All right, I want to make sure I'm saying that right. But let's move on to a trade that was made with the New York Mets here, and this is one I love: Brooks Raley for John Spikerman, and Luke Gabrish. I'm giving this actually an A- as well in terms of what this trade was. Look, the Phillies have been desperate for a left-handed reliever all year. Jose Alvarado has completely imploded, I think, at this point here. Tim Meza's basically burned out, and Kyle Backus, I think he belongs in the minors here at this point. The inability to play matchups in late innings has made the bridge to Johan Duran,
Yeah.
quite rickety, actually. So I think with Brooks Raley, who is in the midst of a career year at the age of 38, believe it or not, I think this is a fantastic trade. It's something they needed. Again, the fact that this team has been desperate for a left-handed reliever all year. I'm giving this trade an A- here.
Yeah, he's a guy that's been solid for a couple years now, consecutively. I mean, he really once he got to New York with the Mets, he really kind of turned things up a little bit. And he's having, like you said, probably the best year of his career.
Yeah.
196 ERA coming into tonight. He did in the game against Washington tonight. He did give up a couple runs in his first appearance in a Phillies uniform. So not the best first impression to get off to, but that happens. So as long as it doesn't continue, I just want to have a couple guys that I can just depend on. Like I was
Yeah.
the a few nights ago we were down in Baltimore. We caught the Phillies game at Camden Yards, and we were there with my wife's friend and her family who are all Orioles fans. And I was talking to her one son who's in high school and plays baseball, and he was asking me about the Phillies bullpen. And I said, to be honest with you, I don't trust any of these guys.
Yeah.
And that's other than Duran, and unfortunately I don't. So I just want a couple guys in here that when they come in, if they do, surrender a couple runs, I'll be like, oh, wow, that's surprising, instead
Yeah.
of them surrendering a couple runs and me going, well, okay, there it is. So yeah, I just want a couple guys that I can feel good about.
Yeah. Real quick with Caleb Killian here, breakout 29-year-old reliever who could really see some high leverage work if he continues at this pace here. He's 20 years old, kind of came out of nowhere. He's got, I believe, a 1.68 ERA in 59 innings this year across 2 minor league levels. Generated a lot of buzz, of course. So I think there's some high ceiling perhaps for him. And I'm going to give this basically I'd say probably a B minus. What are your thoughts on Caleb Killian?
Him, I know less about, just with him being out on the West Coast this year with San Francisco prior to being here, and I know he did have a couple years in Chicago as well. Didn't perform overly well there, so I don't really know a lot about him. So it's kind of one of those things where, like, I'd love to give you more of a detailed answer on him, but until I see him some, he looked good the other night. He was in there. So in the first first game against Washington in the series. So he looked good there. So, hopefully that continues, and, he can, find something, perhaps with this coaching staff, and maybe with the bullpen guys that are here, that'll help him, and hopefully he turns into something that's somewhat reliable.
Yeah, absolutely. And just real quick too, Phillies acquired Colby Thomas from the Athletics for Seth Johnson. Nothing to write home about there. And they also acquired Manuel Colon from the Kansas City Royals for Nolan Hoffman. Honestly, who cares kind of
I mean,
about
it's,
these here?
minor league organizational depth,
Exactly.
shuffling
Exactly.
deck chairs there. So yeah, I mean, that's what that is. But yeah,
Yep.
so we'll see. I think we both are on the same page in terms of our thoughts on what it does for the Phillies defensively, and
Yeah.
it's not the move we would make. I was listening to MLB Network on XM yesterday when I was coming home. They were from the supermarket, and they were talking about that, and they said the same thing. I think you and I have been saying, like, Trey Turner's your worst infield defender, and he's the one guy that didn't move.
Exactly. It's
Like,
incredible. It's
I mean,
incredible.
to me,
What
your two most important, spots defensively on the field are shortstop and center field.
yeah.
It's where the when you're coming up, the best athlete on your team is gonna, if they're an infielder, they're gonna play short. If they're an outfielder, they're gonna play center.
Yeah.
And yeah, Trey Turner is a really good athlete, but he's not the best defender on this team.
Nope.
Bryson Stott is the best defender on this team,
Yeah.
and that's why I think he should be playing shortstop. And then,
Absolutely.
if it was me, Turner would have been the one going to the outfield, not Bryce Harper, because
It, yeah.
Harper has, it's a aspect of his game that I think a lot of people don't, really appreciate. But he didn't come up as a first baseman. He has turned himself into a
Yes.
pretty damn decent defensive first baseman. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe you lose something there because Bohm, I think, is more of a natural third baseman. So, and Bohm, to his credit, he has given you nothing at the plate this year, really too much, but defensively, from where he was when he started his career, he's fashioned himself into a decent defensive third baseman. So, so far it hasn't really hurt them in terms of, the two games that I've seen so far defensively, but I don't know. I just feels like a lot of unnecessary moves when the one piece that isn't good is still where he
Yes.
is.
Exactly. And it begs the question, will we actually see a quote different Phillies team for the remainder of this season? And I think in certain spots, maybe. I have hope that, yes, the bullpen has been altered somewhat. So we may see we may see a little bit more consistency there. And maybe that's just my optimistic hope there. But with a
Wasn't great
rise,
tonight.
no, not at all. Wait, hold on. Did they look? Oh yeah, they really
yeah.
lost.
It was because I was like, because we had said, okay, we're gonna start recording around 10:15 tonight. So I'm like, it got past the ninth inning, and it was like tied 3-3. And I'm like, oh, come on,
Jeez.
just win this in regulation. Let's not go to extra innings.
Yeah.
And then I just happened to look at my phone while we were recording, and I knew that the Nats went up 4-3.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that they were up 10-4, and I was like,
Yeah.
holy hell, what
Yeah.
happened since we started recording? So, apparently things went south. Alvarado could not find the plate.
He can't
He
do it
walked in.
anymore.
He walked in, the leading run to put the Nats up 4-3.
Yeah.
And it was just overthrowing everything. Everything was high in the zone. Just I don't know. He was just, I don't know if he was too amped up or whatever, but
He just can't do it anymore, man. Like he can't.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't have it.
He's
doesn't have it.
bad all year long.
Yeah. I the Arise trade I absolutely love, and of course bringing in Caleb Killian in that trade too. I do. I love it. But I don't think it's actually going to make the quote difference, with this team, the difference that it actually needs. Yes, they needed the type of batter that Arise is, but at the end of the day, is it really going to move the needle too much? It's going to move the needle a little bit, but I don't think it's going to move it to where it needs to be.
I think it'll definitely help. I mean, having a hitter like Arise on your team definitely helps. But the biggest move that they probably could have made in terms of a something that was going to alter the rest of their season significantly would be to get another starter in there that you depend on. Because right now, you have Sanchez, Wheeler, Luzardo. We feel good, very, very good to at least pretty good about all three of those guys. And after that, you got Nola, who nobody feels good about anymore.
Yep.
And then, Painter started tonight, and he had a hamstring issue that he left with. But outside of that, that fifth spot, you have no idea what you're getting. So
Yeah.
if you're gonna, first of all, to get to the playoffs, you could have used the fourth good starter.
Yeah.
And then once you get into the playoffs, I mean, to have four good starters, then at that point you're pretty much set. You're where you need to be as far as your playoff rotation. The Phillies don't completely have that. You have three good starters and then Aaron Nola, who
Yeah.
just, again, you talked about guys that you don't think have it anymore. I
He
we
doesn't.
the best of Aaron Nola went bye-bye a couple years ago,
Yeah.
if you ask me. So yeah, that would have been really the move. Like, just even to get like a Kevin Gossman type guy in, who went to the Cubs, would have been a good move. I'm not asking for Tarek Skubal. We always knew
Right.
that the evil empire out west was going to get him.
Yeah.
But just to get a good quality starting pitcher arm in there would have probably been the biggest thing for the Phillies, and that's the one thing that they didn't do at the deadline. So
Yeah.
maybe that's the thing where by the end we're like, oh, should have done that.
Absolutely. Let us know what you're thinking about these Phillies moves here. Leave a comment below on YouTube if you are listening to us on an audio podcast, or if you're watching on YouTube. Shoot us off an email, philadelphiasportstable@gmail.com. Love to read your email here on the show and respond to it. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, folks, we are going to get into some Sixers talk, some Union talk, and Eagles talk. Stick with us. We'll be right back. All right, we're back to get into this next topic here. And I can't believe we're actually here with the Philadelphia 76ers, as you said at the top of the show, Len. My gosh, Eric and I were talking about what the moves last week, the LeBron move, of course, but the Sixers roster now appears to be set for this coming season, and the excitement is really off the charts when it comes to where this fan base is at, and for absolute good reason. I really do wonder if Mike Gansey, in his first year as director of personnel operations here, has built the NBA's most complete roster at this point. A very dramatic offseason transition we saw from him. This new look core here. I mean, the Jalen Brown acquisition, I cannot wait to see him in a Sixers jersey doing what he does down at the Xfinity Mobile Arena. But I will say this too, with all the excitement that is around this team right now and this roster, championship teams, they do need more than stars. It takes more than just assembling elite players too. I mean, you got to look at roster balance, the depth, defensive adaptability, and players who know and accept their duties and characteristics of what a successful team looks like. So again, I'm not trying to poo-poo any of this at all, but championship teams need more than stars here. And I think that's something important for us to keep in mind. But damn, man, it's an exciting time for sure.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, and like you said, you need more than stars. Well, okay, yeah, obviously all of the oxygen is going to be taken up by the acquisitions of Jalen Brown and LeBron James.
Yeah.
That, there's nothing you can do about that. But they also brought in Anthony Simons, good, scorer off the bench.
Yep.
Dean Wade, a decent 3-and-D, big off the bench, who isn't going to require the ball in his hands. You've got a lot of guys that have high usage rates. So you're going to need guys that don't need the ball in their hands, and he's a guy that you can put on the floor that's going to give you that. Kentavious Caldwell Pope, they just brought in.
Yes.
So I mean, all of a sudden, and that's just the new guys you brought in. You still have guys like Dominic Barlow, Adam Bona. You still have. I'm excited. I don't think you're going to see a lot of them, but LeBaron Fillon, the guy that they drafted, he looked really good in summer league. I kind of want to see what he can do.
Yep.
But are you going to see him that much, because there's only so many minutes on this team. The one area, really the only area that gives me concern on this roster as it stands right now, is obviously Embiid, the availability. Who are your backup bigs? I mean, you have Barlow, you have Bona, but like, are you good with that? Or do you think that they shown you enough last year to be like, okay, if Embiid's out for a long spell, who do we have as our center? I know they brought in Ariel Hukporti from the Knicks last year.
Yeah.
Maybe he might be a guy that in training camp you really look at to see, like, is he a guy that could get some minutes if he performs well enough in practices and stuff like that? Is he a guy that could get Nick Nurse's trust to throw him out there in the 5 spot? I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know, but that's, it looks like a very complete team except for that backup center position. And
Yep.
when you've got a guy like Embiid that misses as much time as he does, that goes from being a smaller concern to a larger concern. So, we'll see what happens there.
Yeah,
Maybe they have to play
absolutely.
small a lot. I don't know.
They might. And look, I think it's interesting that Nick Nurse is still here. Given the struggles, given the
Yeah.
challenges of this team over the past how many seasons now, he's going to have to make the most of a team just full of elite players while making sure that each player, again, is aware of their responsibilities. And not to reiterate or beat a dead horse, championships are not guaranteed by talent alone, and developing that chemistry is going to be crucial to where this team ends up going. I mean, this isn't like we're all excited, absolutely, and we should be, but I think we all need to take a step back and say, you know what? How is the chemistry actually going to work out? And Nick Nurse is going to be a big part of making sure that all comes together.
Yeah. And that's, that's the other concern I had was, I mentioned about guys that, don't necessarily need the ball in their hands. I think, and this is kind of just, I guess, a prediction I have for the season. If you go, and easy to say about a guy that's in his 40s, but I think this will be, from a scoring standpoint, LeBron's lowest, average points per game in his career. I think it will, because and age, I mean, he still looks like $1 million, but he doesn't have to. I mean, Jalen Brown, scores a ton of points. Tyrese Maxey scores a ton of points. Embiid, when he's there, can score a ton of points. It's not that he can't. It's just LeBron isn't going to really need to score as much.
Yeah.
I think, when he was the Lakers, he had Luka and Austin Reeves maybe, but I mean, he's just got options. I mean, pick your poison. And then when those 5 starters, those 4 and Edgecombe are out on the floor, another thing I'm looking at is Edgecombe. Okay, maybe he gets lost in the shuffle, but also, okay, all your best defenders, you're going to have to pick who you're going to put them on. And I think VJ Edgecombe is going to see some maybe weaker defenders than he normally would.
Yeah.
And he may be able to exploit those matchups.
Yeah.
Who knows? So it's another thing to kind of consider. So yeah, it's amazing. My level, and I don't think I'm alone in this, my level of interest in the Sixers coming into this year from last year, when you just saw 2 big contracts in Embiid and Paul George that you knew you were only going to get half a season out of.
Yeah.
Just the man, what a difference. What a gigantic difference in just perception and excitement for this upcoming season.
Yeah, dude. They should just give Mike Gansey the key to the city after this. I don't even care.
I mean,
don't even play a game yet. Just give him the key to the city. He deserves it.
Him and Bob Myers as well. The president of the Harris Blitzer Sports Group, guy that was basically the architect of those Golden State teams that won those 4 championships. I mean,
Great point.
I think they worked in tandem, and I think, I mean, Gansey even said it himself the other night when he was on with Kruk and McCarthy at the Phillies game. He said, if we don't get Jalen Brown, we're never even in the conversation for LeBron James. He's not even thinking about us. It wasn't until we got Jalen Brown and that we became a potential destination. So being able to make that trade and bring him in, I mean, unbelievable. I would have never pictured any of this.
I know, because, dude, how many times on this podcast, other podcasts, it was written in articles, there's no way they're going to be able to get rid of that Paul George contract.
Yeah.
What's going to happen over all these years? And he fucking did it. He did.
And that's why, like that's the kind of negative in me coming out. It's like, okay, why would they give us Jalen Brown? Like, is Jalen Brown secretly the most toxic locker room person of all time?
Yeah.
Like, why would they do that? But I don't know.
Injury? Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm just, I'm super excited.
Yeah.
I actually can't wait to watch them this year. And it's been some time since I felt that way about the Sixers.
Gonna be fun. Gonna be fun. Folks, we're gonna take a break. And when we come back, Union Talk, Eagles Talk. Stick with us. All right, we're back for some Philadelphia Union talk. Yes, I know it has been a while since we have talked about this team. Why? Because they have sucked. They have been at the basement of the Eastern Conference in Major League Soccer now for just about this entire season, except for their past three matches. My God, they have actually won three matches in a row at this point here. Interim head coach Ryan, oh my God, Richter. Yes, Ryan Richter is had quite a month, and he's going to have quite a busy month in August with the Leagues Cup next up on the docket here. But it's everything's been positive with this team, Len, since the World Cup break has ended, and I do wonder if the Philadelphia Union are going to be kicking it up into some gear here. You know, this is the spark that this team needs. It's amazing that they're actually 13th now in the
Yeah,
Eastern Conference.
They're not
of
in
16th.
last place anymore
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
East, which is crazy to think about. Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious to know, and I haven't looked into it enough. I'd be curious to know exactly, what happened in that World Cup break. I mean, not a
Yeah.
lot of these guys were playing in the World Cup. I think Danley, John Jock played for Haiti, but they were bounced relatively quickly. But I don't really know that a lot of other people with the Union played in the World Cup. So
Yeah.
was it rest? Was it getting back together? Was it maybe they got together during that break and were able to like just work on a couple things in terms of like getting more familiar, getting more comfortable. It's quite possible, but yeah, and so I don't quite know. I do know that in those three games since they've been back, Milan Alaski has scored a goal in all three of those games.
Yeah.
So he's kind of come on a little bit as a scorer, and then um, Neil Pierre, who has been a revelation on the back end. A 6'7", fullback,
Yeah.
a guy that and he had a nice header. I think it might have been the last game against Atlanta. But you're doing a corner kick and you have a 6'7" guy that can get up in the air and head balls in. That's a weapon right there,
Yeah.
especially a young athletic guy like him. So yeah, it's been amazing. And then maybe the most encouraging thing to me is the last game against Atlanta. The Union typically, it feels like the past couple years, whenever I watch them, they'll be up late, they'll be up by a goal, and there will be a goal for the other team in stoppage time, and they pull a draw out of the jaws of victory. Like
Yeah.
like instead of getting the full points, they just get a draw because they just let in a bad goal or whatever at the end of the
Right.
game. And that's been something that it feels like they've done a lot the past couple of years. Well, this game against Atlanta, they were down 2-1 going into stoppage time. You get two goals, not one, but two goals in stoppage time, and you come back and you win that game. That is not something I'm used to with the Philadelphia Union. And that was
Nope.
something when I saw that, that is something that really made me take notice. And then of course, the other huge thing is Kai Wagner's back.
Yes.
It sounds like maybe it was a family decision. He went over to Birmingham City last year, and maybe they gave England a try. And I don't. It sounded like in his goodbye address to the social media address to the Birmingham City supporters group, he did say it sounded very much like a family thing. So
Yeah.
they wanted to come back to the States, and I believe him. I believe that was the thing of it. But he also, since he's come back, he's been like, it feels good to be home. Like it feels like, Philadelphia is his home. Yeah, maybe he wanted to give, being in the Champions League a try, but this was always a good soft landing spot. And, having him back, is only going to help that defense. So suddenly one of the big losses that you had from your team is back, and that could only help too. So,
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
think it was
there's a
after the
number of
Atlanta
factors.
game. Real
Yeah.
quick, I think it was after the Atlanta game. Alato actually said the king is back.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. I mean,
how it
yeah,
feels.
it matters. I mean,
Yeah,
having when you have a guy that has been just a stalwart, a guy that's been, on the, the best 11 team for the past few years in MLS. I mean, that matters. That matters a whole ton. So,
yeah.
I'm sure just that alone probably picked the Union up as a team quite a bit in terms of just the attitude towards, how the season is going.
Yeah,
Stuff like that matters.
absolutely. There's optimism with this team now at this point,
Yeah.
and
And you said
yeah,
now Leagues Cup is coming up.
yep.
I actually tomorrow night they have Cruz Azul at home, and I actually toyed with the idea of going to the game. I have
Oh,
too much stuff I got to do the next day.
I know
So to
life.
drive down there, yeah, it
Ugh,
sucks because I really was planning on doing it. Um, um, but yeah,
freaking
so
life.
well,
We can't
it's just
can't do anything as we're getting older. I thought it was
well,
supposed to be easier.
and my wife was like, "Well, aren't you gonna do stuff on your vacation?" So it was like, "Okay, I'm gonna go to this game." And then I told her about it. She's like, "Yeah, but we have this, and this." And it's like, "You said
There you
go do
go.
stuff on your vacation."
Exactly,
So,
exactly.
um,
These ladies in our lives every
uh,
now and again.
ruining everything. No,
Yeah,
they don't.
no, no.
Um,
Well, let's
but
move
yeah,
on here. Yeah, let's move on here to the Philadelphia Eagles, buddy, because I mean, you know me in football,
sure.
football, love it.
I know. We
Absolutely.
know.
Eagles storylines, man, there's a ton of them, but Len and I wanted to get into like what we're specifically focusing on here this week, any specific storylines. And I got to tell you, the one storyline that I'm really honing in on from this week is the connection that Jalen Hurts and Dontavian Wicks are having. And I mention this because this is almost a new wide receiver room. Yes, Smitty is back. Dallas Goedert still hopefully going to be a very capable and I hesitate to say dominant tight end, but I mean, what he had 12 touchdown receptions last year. Um, this wide receiver room, there's a lot of skepticism out there about how they're going to perform. But this week at camp, Len, Dontavian Wicks came over after leaving the Green Bay Packers. And somebody who I think has a ton of talent. First year in the league back in 2023, had 581 yards. 2024, it went down to 415 yards. Last year, he only played 14 games, 332 yards. But the connection, and from the reports this week that Jalen Hurts and Dontavian Wicks has is something that's going on. I'm sorry, I'm referencing something and I'm seeing my campaign commercial in front of me. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this? Sorry, that was not professional, folks. Not that we're the most professional outfit here,
No,
but
for
geez,
sure.
that really stopped me in my tracks. I saw my campaign ad right here as I was looking up
That you've only
Dontavian
probably
Wicks.
seen about 100 times so far.
Exactly. Yes. But anyway, that's the storyline that I'm really honing in on this week. The fact that almost a new wide receiver room, and it's good to know that Jalen Hurts has a connection with Dontavian Wicks here. I think it's important.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It kind of feeds into something that I was thinking about,
Yeah.
and
What's yours?
it's you mentioned it is a whole new wide receiver room, and you mentioned and Devontae Smith's back. Yeah, he's back, but he went from being, I don't know if you'd call him a number two receiver. I'd say he's 1B to AJ
One big.
Brown's 1A,
Yeah.
but now he is the undisputed top dog in that receiver room. He is the number one option. He is the guy that all those defenses are going to be keying on. How does he adapt to that? How does he what happens there? And you mentioned Dontavian Wicks. That opens up a big, opportunity on the other side of the field opposite Devontae Smith for that number two receiver.
Yeah.
Who steps into that void? Is it Dontavian Wicks? Now if he is building that rapport with Jalen Hurts, what happens there? Who
Yeah.
fills that void? I mean, I think Lemon is going to be a good player for them, but
Got to ease them in. Got to ease them in.
yeah, having you can't just draft a rookie offensive player and say, okay, you're gonna just. I mean,
Right.
very few people do it.
Right.
You'll have the occasional like Justin Jefferson or somebody like that just comes in and blows the doors off the league as a rookie, but that's the exception and not the rule. So I wouldn't expect anything like that out of Mekhi Lemon this year. But that doesn't mean that somebody else in that completely revamped receiver room doesn't step in and take that number 2 job. So
Yeah,
it's there for the taking. Who wants it?
absolutely.
So and then that's the thing. Like all of the, I think all the storylines that are really intriguing about this team this year are on the offensive side of the ball, given what a disaster the team was offensively last year, how
Yep.
much just wildly inconsistent it was. And then also, Sean Mannion's here, but okay, here's another offensive coordinator for Jalen Hurts to work with, another one. How do you ever gain stability when that position is always changing on you? So,
Yeah.
how does Jalen Hurts navigate that? How does that relationship build with him and Sean Mannion? I think I've seen some reports that the Eagles are using a lot more motion than
Yep.
they have in practice than they have in years past.
Absolutely.
So how does that feed in? Is Hurts comfortable with that? Is it something that's going to help his game, hurt his game? So and until you see those very few amount of drives that they're going to get in preseason, you're not going to really be able to tell anything. But yeah, I think it's a viable question coming in. What is this offense going to look like? Hard to imagine it's going to look worse than it did last year, but
Yeah.
until you see it, you know.
Absolutely. And we're going to get into this with Ed Kracz in just a bit, our good friend from Eagles Today over at SI. We're going to be talking about the offensive line, the struggles from last year, what we may see from them this year. And also that at the end of the day, it's going to be the Jalen Hurts and Sean Mannion connection too. We're talking about Jalen Hurts and Dontavian Wicks connection. It really is Mannion and Hurts coming together with that connection. That is going to be so key. So far, so good. And the fact that Jalen Hurts is absolutely in love with Sean Mannion at this point and how he's running the offense, brand new plays, Sean Mannion playing to Jalen Hurts' strength so far. That connection is so key, man.
Yeah, and it just you just want good vibes. I mean, just given how it felt like nobody on that offense was on the same page last year. I mean, nobody. So yeah, you just want to come into camp with feeling like, okay, these guys like to work with each other and they're building a rapport, and just that is enough of getting off on the right foot, just to start with.
Yep, absolutely. All right, buddy. Well, I'm going to let you go. We're going to get to our interview with Ed Kracz, and we got more Eagles talk coming everybody's way. Any final thoughts here before we head out?
No, just stop watching your campaign videos during the show.
Oh my gosh, boy, that happened to me. That actually happened to me last week too. And Eric and I were on, and it wasn't as large as this one was. This one took up about half the screen just now.
Yeah, I thought you were like, gosh. I thought you had a phrase in your mind, and you couldn't grasp it. Like I thought that's what you were doing, but no, you were just watching something else.
Watching my dumb face.
I'm just gonna start putting games on my phone while we do the show, and I'll just
sure. Why not? All right, buddy, I'll see you later, folks. Right. We're gonna take a break, and when we come back, a lot more Eagles talk. All right, let's get into this Philadelphia Eagles training camp, what we've been seeing thus far, and what some of the talent may do on this team as the regular season is right around the corner. We have preseason football coming, and I cannot believe that it is almost here. We've been waiting a long time, but during that time, we've been reading a lot of great content from our guest this week, Ed Kracz, over at SI Eagles Today. Our good friend for so many years. Buddy, thanks so much for taking the time to join us this week.
Always a pleasure, Jeff. Thanks for having me on.
It's great to be able to dive into this Eagles training camp with you. And look, just to start us off, I mean, this Eagles team, the offense, the defense, even special teams, they are in full go mode right now. And there's more than a few storylines here that we're certainly going to be getting into. And thus far, it really does seem like, from an offensive perspective, it does seem like Jalen Hurts and Sean Mannion are really connecting in terms of how this offense will now be run. That's what I'm getting from the reports out there. What have you seen from Jalen Hurts? We know we've seen him in front of the microphone, us fans have, but from what you've seen out there, what have you seen from him? Does he really seem more comfortable, talking about this offense, and his connection with it? It seems like he does. Is that what you're seeing as well? I mean, is that the vibe out there?
Yeah, this isn't Jalen Hurts' first rodeo with a new offensive coordinator. Obviously, right. He's been through about a dozen of them in the last 13 years. So, he always talks about learning something new in each offense he's been a part of, and this seems to be the case. And
Yeah.
now Jalen, this is his 6th year in the league or 7th year.
Yeah.
He came in 2020, so I guess this will be a 7th season. So he's he kind of likes to help an offensive coordinator out as well. You see him, trying to help Sean Mannion even, and those two talk all the time about how they want the offense to look, but even more specifically than that, how a play should look. They go through their plays and they'll talk about them before and after in meeting rooms and kind of diagnose what went wrong or what they liked or what they didn't like, whether they should leave it in or whether they should take it out. But there's a lot of give and take, I think, maybe more so now with Jalen and Sean Mannion, who is a former NFL quarterback himself, more of a backup.
Right. Yeah.
But, those two can talk football because, Mannion's been out there. He has seen it from behind center, something that other quarterback or offensive coordinators that Hurts has had did not have that. So,
yeah.
I think that leads to a little bit more give and take. So that's probably the biggest difference. I think both guys talked about that is, Jalen wants to be of service to Mannion and Mannion wants to help Hurts be the best player that he can be.
It's amazing. It seems like they do have this connection here, a connection I don't necessarily think Jalen had with last year's offensive coordinator. I mean, I don't want to dig up, the garbage of what last season was from an offensive perspective and the challenges that persisted. But I mean, I got to be honest, Ed, I'm looking forward to seeing some mesh concepts this year. I really am.
Yeah. I think we'll see it. I think, we can get into it, but yeah, I think we'll see some of that more this year between, with Hurts and Mannion kind of doing that give and take.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I put up on our screen for YouTube viewers here, Hurts, possibly throwing over the middle. We've all been saying this for years and years, hasn't necessarily been part of his game, but reports have said that Hurts has been throwing more over the middle during camp. And yes, it is camp, but you talked about, some of these new plays that are being drawn up, Ed. I mean, have you been seeing this as well? Because I think it's an important part of the game of football, especially from an offensive perspective, of course. Are you seeing this more? Jalen throwing over the middle? Are we finally going to see Jalen putting the ball, perhaps, again, just over the middle of the field, just, focus instead of focusing on the receivers outside the numbers? I mean, are we going to be seeing more of this?
Yeah, well, we already have. It's
yes.
early in camp, but yeah, he is throwing over the middle. They have really seemed to focus. And again, day 4, I think, was today. So
yeah.
But we are seeing them kind of focusing on a lot of get the ball out quick, throwing the ball over the middle, maybe short, but we've also seen some intermediate passes. And Devontae Smith has been fantastic as far as working over the middle of the field.
Nice.
And Jalen has been throwing it over the middle of the field. And we saw a touchdown pass today from about maybe 35, 40 yards to Elijah Moore down the seam, down the center of the field, out of the slot, which, I thought was tremendous to see. I mean, it was a great throw. Moore was covered pretty well, but Jalen put it right where he had to put it, and it was between the numbers where everybody wants to see him throw. Now, the cautionary side of that is there's more traffic typically over the middle. So, you don't want to put the ball in harm's way. Hurts threw his first interception today, but that was kind of a misread on a 7-on-7 throw into Elijah Moore. I think he expected him to go one way, and Moore did not go that way, and Hurts threw it there and was picked off by Quinyon Mitchell. But, I think that, we have seen in camp some struggles with it. I mean, as you would think, he's kind of getting used to it. Now, Jalen, to his credit, says I've been part of, drop back under center type offenses where I throw the football over the middle. But, he in one series earlier in camp, he had Jahad Campbell, big 6'3" linebacker, kind of had to try to launch it over top of Campbell, who was leaping, and Campbell tipped it a little bit and redirected it, and the ball fell incomplete. So, you have to be careful when you're throwing over the middle too. I know it excites people, but you want to make sure you're making the correct decision to go over the middle. But again, I think I've seen him throw over the middle. I think I've seen him line up under center, and I think I've seen more motion on probably day 1 of those 3 things than I saw in any training camp before Mannion has gotten here.
I just think it's awesome, and it's a new wide receiver room as well, Ed. And I am excited about what this talent is going to bring. I can't wait to see what Makai Lemon is going to do this season. And you wrote a recent story about Makai Lemon, how his teammates being impressed with him thus far during this very tiny window of practice. But this is a new receiver room, and expectations are going to be pretty high, especially for this rookie drafted in the first round. We're also seeing him return punts. You mentioned that during your article as well. How would you assess what you've seen from Makai Lemon and the vibes at camp that he's actually given off here?
Yeah, I think his teammates are excited to have him. And, he's the only rookie in that receiving room, even though the Eagles did rebuild it a little bit after trading A.J. Brown. But, I think he has some of the guys excited about what he can do and his skill set and the shiftiness that he can bring to that position. One of my concerns about him is his size. I'm trying not to let that be a concern, because I was concerned when they drafted Devontae Smith way back when, being, 165 pounds, 6 foot. But, Lemon's a little bigger than that. He's about 190 pounds, but he's a little smaller, or shorter, I should say, maybe a 5'11", 5'10", somewhere in there. So, that's one of my concerns. But size always concerns me. To me, Jeff, I think he's probably going to do most of his work early out of the slot. I think he could be a very, very good slot receiver. I know I've seen comparisons to Amon St. Brown in Detroit. Maybe he could be that kind of slot guy, just because he's so shifty and he's hard to cover. He's got quick bursts. If you get him the ball with a little bit of separation, he can take it a long way. And yards after the catch was a big problem for this team last year. The receivers didn't get much of that. I think the Eagles were near last in what they call the yak, the yards after catch. But I think that's one of the reasons they liked Lemon too, was that he can do things after he gets the ball in his hands. So you just have to be able to create separation and catch the ball. And these are things he did in college. So we're still kind of learning a little bit about Makai Lemon. He missed most of spring with a hamstring injury. Again, there you go with the size thing, maybe being concerning. But, hamstrings can happen to anybody, how big or small you are. So I just think that as time goes on, he's going to get this offense down. They're kind of force feeding it to him right now. They're asking him to do a lot. But once he gets this thing figured out, I think he's going to be able to contribute quite a bit this year. And I'd put him in, maybe, I know we haven't seen him play a snap, but I think he has a chance to maybe contend for the Offensive Rookie of the Year.
That'd be awesome. That'd be fantastic. I can't wait to see what he's going to do during the preseason, of course, because we got games right around the corner here. I cannot wait to see some of these Eagles players and what the depth is going to do, because that's inevitably what preseason is about. But look, we're going to take a break real quick. Ed, let folks know where you can find you where folks can find you on the interwebs if they want to connect with you out there.
Yeah, you can hit me up on the X platform, formerly Twitter. At Kracz, Krazze, and there's all the links that that I write, and sometimes others that I repost. So that's where you need to go, at Kracz on the X platform.
All right, very good, folks. We're going to take a break. When we get back, more Eagles talk coming your way. All right, we're back with our friend Ed Kracz from SI over to Eagles Today, and to stick with the offense here, because we've talked about it over the years, Ed, that you've been so kind to come on this podcast, and that the offensive line needs to be healthy. They need to be productive, because if they're not, the offense itself is not going to be productive. And Landon Dickerson, a big storyline from this past week here, talking to the press about how he probably should not have played week 1 last season after having surgery the week before. It was certainly an honest, reflective sentiment from him. And I do wonder if we're going to see the offensive line try not to get through the injury bug this year, try not, to just toughen it out, but to let the coaches and the medical staff know that, I can't play if there's something that bad that they need to heal up, perhaps. So I'm wondering, do you think after Landon Dickerson's situation last year, and also reflecting on what Cam Jurgens went through as well, that we're going to see more caution with the offensive line this coming season? Is there that sentiment at all? Or are these just guys who are so competitive, they're like, I don't care. My leg's going to fall off and I'm going to be out there playing. So what's the sentiment regarding the offensive line, the health, and needing to be honest about where they're at?
Yeah, Well, it's very important. You have to be honest with the doctors and the trainers, and if you're not, you're probably not helping the team. You're not doing yourself any favor in the long
Right.
term. You're going to need some kind of a trip to Colombia, which both Jurgens and Dickerson took to get the stem cell treatment that isn't available here in the United States. A lot of players apparently do it, according to Dickerson and Jurgens, who we talked to, and they said that other veterans have told them they've done it. So I think the Eagles will exercise maybe some caution. I mean, we're early in camp, and I think once we start maybe ramping things up a little bit, these rest days always pop up for various veteran players. Lane Johnson didn't practice today. He was excused for a personal reason. It wasn't necessarily a rest day. But I think as you see things ramp up a little bit here, as we get into the dog days of August, you might start seeing some guys just taking that veteran day off just to kind of keep their bodies as fresh as they possibly can be. And even once the season gets rolling, I think you'll see guys like Jurgens and Dickerson maybe, and Lane Johnson maybe taking, that player rest day. And, and that's good for their bodies, but it's also good for the development of your depth. Guys that are going to be their backups, it gives them an opportunity to get out there with the first team, get those reps. So I think it's good all around if a player is being honest about his health. If he's not well enough to be out there, then he shouldn't be. But Landon, listen, he said that we don't get paid to be hurt. So you want to be out there and you want to play. And how many times, when you talk about one of the toughest guys on that line, Jason Kelsey, I mean, I saw him play through some things that were just gruesome, but he does it. And that's what he gets paid to do. And, I'm not sure that helps long term or if it helps the team in the short term, but it's hard to talk these guys out of saying, hey, I don't feel good. My leg hurts or, I have a shoulder stinger, whatever. They want to be out there. They want to play. This is what they get paid to do. This is what they love to do. But again, is that for the betterment of the team? I don't necessarily think so. But we'll see. I think what we'll see is, like I said, these veterans will be given some veteran days off as we hit the dog days of August and then into the season.
Yeah. I want to move over to the defensive side of the ball here. And after seeing how the Eagles defense dominated in camp right out of the gate, I mean, there's this notion that this could really be a top 3 defense in the NFL, Ed. And I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on this particular storyline and narrative based on what you've been seeing during practices thus far? And are there any under the radar depth players that have really stood out to you as well? So I guess this is kind of a 2-part question here, but a top 3 defense in the NFL. What are you thinking here?
Absolutely. I mean, you have Pro Bowl players at every level of this defense. Jalen Carter on the defensive line, Pro Bowler. Zach Bond at linebacker, Pro Bowler. You have Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, Pro Bowlers, all pro guys. Tariq Woolen, who was a Pro Bowler with Seattle. That's 5 guys right there, and it's on every level of the defense. So it's tough. And then you add in Vic Fangio. This is his 3rd year as the DC, and he's worked with a lot of these players. So they're not coming in learning new stuff. They're just coming in and fine-tuning what they've learned from Fangio over the years. Maybe Fangio will throw something a little bit new or different at them from year to year, so they're not as predictable, but they're little tweaks. And so you would expect the defense first to be ahead of the offense at this stage in early August, but also to be a defense that can be a top 3 defense overall in this league. And, they say the defense wins championships. We certainly saw that when they beat the Chiefs, how they harassed Mahomes and picked them off. So I think this defense can be very, very good. I think it will be very, very good. And for all the reasons I just mentioned, and Jordan Davis, he could have been a Pro Bowler. He should have been a Pro Bowler. So you got him too. Jalix Hunt has looked like a double-digit sack in waiting early on. Now we'll start to do more thud at practice on Tuesday. And it's always a different story when the pads come on. But we saw Jalix Hunt last year and the year before that with pads on, and he's very good. And I think he's only beginning to scratch the surface of his ability. So
that's good to know.
He's another guy that you really have to watch out for. Moro Ajomo, this could be his last year with the Eagles, which would be sad. Nick Fangio joked that, hey, hopefully Howie saves some money for Moro Ajomo because he's just he's like having another coach on that field. He's so smart.
Yeah. But
he's a guy that could be a Pro Bowler. So, I mean, you just go up and down this defense. And Jahad Campbell, he looks pretty good. And Jeremiah Trotter, who, is a good backup. Maybe he could even start. has looked very good in camp. So, if there's any reason to be excited about the Eagles, it's this defense with its ability to, I think, like you said, be a top 3 defense.
Yeah. And do you think Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is kind of that under the radar guy at this point?
Yeah, I would certainly put Jeremiah Trotter in there. I would also maybe say maybe Michael Carter. He's kind of transitioning to safety. He was a really good slot back. He played safety when he was at Duke. The Eagles got him in the trade deadline last year from the New York Jets, but I think he could be a guy to keep an eye on as far as that safety spot goes, because if you look at the safety position, they're going to put Cooper DeJean back there a little bit. They have Marcus Epps, a veteran. Drew Makuba, second year, was kind of up and down last year and then got hurt for the final quarter. But Michael Carter, to me, they've been using him at safety. He could be a guy under the radar, someone that will play, I'm sure, in the preseason. We don't see a lot of the starters.
Yeah.
But Michael Carter is one for sure. And Trot to keep an eye on once that preseason starts. I guess that's in Baltimore a week from Saturday.
Oh, my gosh.
It's coming up. Yeah.
It's coming up for sure. All right, buddy. Well, before I let you go, and look, I know it's a general question here, but I'm wondering if you've noticed any differences, or maybe the biggest difference that you've seen at this year's training camp than from previous years. I mean, it could be any subject matter. Is there any difference this year than perhaps in previous years?
Yeah, just like we talked about the offense, like just seeing how different it is with the under center, with the over the middle, with the motion. I mean, this is a lot of misdirection stuff. We've seen kind of some jet sweep motions when the ball is snapped where you could hand it to a guy like Lemon or, a receiver that they like in the run game that they think can get yards. And then they'll pitch it outside to Barkley or to Tank Bigsby. Tank Bigsby, an under the radar guy on offense.
Yeah.
I know he kind of impressed last year, but he's a guy that maybe can get in line for some more snaps. But I would say it's probably that offensive difference is the biggest thing I see. And I also see a team that, it's a new team. I think Jalen Hurts touched on it. He would like to see some discipline and unity, and kind of took a side swipe at A.J. Brown when he said, we're 100% aligned and 0% no entitlement.
Yeah.
That to me is AJ, but I think you're seeing a team trying to all be on the same page. You're taking care of one another. Now that could change as the temperatures rise with the weather and you put the pads on and guys start hitting. But I see a team that, is very much interested in building discipline and team unity.
Yeah, I got to tell you, it's going to be fascinating to watch this team. And it's also going to be great to read your content, Ed, over at SI Eagles Today. Again, folks, catch him on the Twitter/X at KratzE. A great follow. My friend, thanks so much for taking the time, Ed. It's always great talking to you. Love talking birds and NFL storylines with you. Let's do it at some other point down the road. I'd love to have you back on the show.
Anytime, buddy. You got it. Thank you.